ubiquitous medium of critical exchanges of energy and intelligence, which he referred to as the ether. Which is like the ore that's gone. Now, I'm not saying that I'm a good person to talk to about the work of Wilhelm Reich, having just quoted an abbreviated version or notation of his work. But that's what I found useful about it. That's all. I enjoyed, and you can take, people take therapeutic theories out of it and stuff. I'm just like, ideas are ideas, good idea, thank you very much. I'm not into that healing shit. People do a lot of weird shit in the name of healing, don't they? Fuck weirdos, fucking weirdos. That's not healing. That's sexual abuse. Most people's idea of healing and therapy to me is sexual abuse. I'm going to skip around here for a second. We talked about women's voices. Female energy is creative energy. Everything is meaningful. Our breath, our bones, we are here, we are breathing. We are created out of meaningful creativeness. So the creating of meaning is creative energy, is the creation of meaning. Nothing has ever been created, but meaning was created. Something meaningful was created. When you were created, whenever that would have been. That's kind of interesting, right? Incredibly new meaning was born. Right now, you could you're making new meaning. If this is meaningless, oh, that sucks. So we can experience meaninglessness, but that doesn't mean that things don't mean anything. Whereas humans, we can create things without meaning. I could just kill a puppy, and you would say that's meaningless violence. Yeah, I just created meaningless violence. Right? It's only meaningful in the study of abnormal, sadistic psychopaths who even use examples like that. People like me, right? Like, that's the only meaning we can draw, is to learn what not to be like, aka you. So, right? What's meaningful about violence? If you think of meaningful things, I don't think people usually think about violent things. World War I and II are not meaningful. It's not a meaningful experience. It's a traumatic experience from which you can draw maybe useful or meaningful information about what not to do, right? War is a failure. We're all failures in war. War makes failures of us all. We're the biggest failures in history when we're a part of war. You're all fucking losers. War is for losers. War is for failures. I don't care whether you think you're a slave or a worker or an indentured fucking civil union bearer. You're a fucking complete fucking loser of all time and space when you participate in organized warfare. I'm gonna make a strong point of that. Now, I would have to explain that and why I think that way, perhaps. And it's not a common opinion, perhaps, but it's not an uncommon feeling. If you said, look, if you converted that into pure emotion, you could say, well, dude, I get, like, you don't like war. I get it, man. Like, who likes, people killing your family? Like, it's not, I'm not like, hey, I'm glad my mother was napalmed. Yeah, I've got some of her melted flesh right here. It's like, I've made meaning. I've made a little diorama. I've made little tiny people going, hey, our mother's dead flesh gave us new crops. Rain's coming down, and we've lost our thoughts. So you can understand the emotion of, like, I don't like war. And I'm being very pedantic here. Be surprised that, I don't think people like war. Do you like war? Oh, that's a complicated question. I mean, I like doing my duty. That should war be necessary, I really like doing what I'm told. It's like, oh, fuck you. It's like, don't like war. Don't like it. Don't fucking like it. Don't like it. Please don't like war. If you got a YouTube survey saying, do you like war or do not like war? And they covered up the do not like thing because they don't want, they've got pictures of Hitler and Nazis. Only Nazis don't like war. And you're like, what's the right answer? You're going for a job interview for a 6-figure income job. Last question. Do you like war? Um, I enjoy the opportunity to enter into, if necessary, mortal combat with people whose behavior toward me or you and our great nation has been thoroughly deemed inappropriate and threatening to our entire way of life. People who, quote, hate our freedom do deserve to breathe. And against those people, I would gladly war, make war, enjoy war, love war, shit, piss, eat, and fuck war if it helped us get rid of those motherfuckers. You'd probably get the job. Or no. So, when you have a high IQ, you don't want to get a job because you got war. And if you've studied history, if you've studied this world at all, it's all about war. It's all about war. Economics is war. Do you understand? Economics is war. It's black magic. Your school is a prison. It's all theater. You're all schizophrenics. We're all actors. We're all going to get the Academy Award for a stupid shit. And we're all going to go to heaven and congratulate ourselves for finally getting through this awful ordeal called life, which is what we've made it out to be. Because we've lost our sense of a very ethereal substance of creation and of female energy and of the birth of our children, which is this incredible thing called living in a totally meaningful world, separate from heaven, which, by the way, is always meaningful. Okay? And there's no reason for this life on earth not to be meaningful. So that's my first little lecture of the day. Don't be part of war. I think it was funny when a friend of mine, and then increasingly just myself, I would play war by going to the park, picking up sticks that looked like bazookas. I guess bazooka was my sense of like the most powerful gun. And I'm not sure what it fired or whether I knew what a bazooka was, but I think a GI Joe guy had a bazooka, so I knew like a bazooka was. I didn't even really imagine what the bazooka would do to the human body any more than Christians imagine what it means to take a rib out of Adam and then somehow give birth to someone out of a wound in the side of a man's body instead of making a woman, right? And then taking Adam out of her vagina, which would, to me would make more sense. Although I guess it'd be harder to explain having sex with each other at that point. So it's like, no, we'll do the rib method. um, it's a strange story. Like if you made up a creation story and if you were a child and you never heard about Christianity, it's like, could you make up a story about where things came from? Does anyone ever ask children that? Do you even know? Like, what would you say? Where does stuff come from? Anything. Like, give me a word, a color, a number, anything. Where does stuff come from? Where? Where? Is it a place? Is it a time? Is it a dimension? Where? Right? And the physicist would say one thing, and the Christian would say something. Because when you ask people where things come from, it really kind of tells you where they come from, where they're coming from. If you ask them where things come from, I'm going to tell you where I come from. Now, if I was in an amphitheater or I was in a coliseum with like 25 million people and they were all cheering for the fact that I come from violence, and there was a great play of violence in front of us because in our creation story we come from violence, and it's like, I know you're in the crowd and you come from violence. Violence is the origin of thy being in one way or another, and those of you who deny this are the fornicators of the world. And I would sit there and I'd be like, okay, I came from violence. I've had abuse. All right, I'm with you. I'd look around like, yeah, violence. Yeah, me too. You come from violence, yeah. You can see how, you could believe that humans come from violence. History is violent. Are we not all coming from a violent place? Have we not survived? Have we not arrived at this shore from some violent journey into the world or through the world or through time? Do we inherit history? Do we inherit our parents' history? Was life always good for them? Was life fun? What do you think about the world? Do you think that what people and our parents do is just innocuous? Can it be violent? Can it lead to violence? Do we at a certain scale, but come from love and education at a smaller scale? And right now, at this scale, absolute love, because No one needs to come from any other place because we're all set. But where are you coming from right now? Where are you coming from? Think about that. Because where you're coming from is going to decide everywhere you're going to, and whether or not you're going to be my enemy. Where are you coming from? Are you coming from a place of war? Now, if you don't feel safe with me, you are free, aren't you, to leave. You're free to never see me again, never hear me again, never know I haven't said or done anything that has to make me appear in your mind, because I'm not violating your ethereal field, and I can't because I don't know you, and I wouldn't want to anyway. I'm not a violent person. So there's no reason for anything other than maybe my strange thoughts or questions to maybe resonate. Maybe I can convince someone like, hey, that guy asks questions that I've never been asked before. And that could linger in someone's mind. I could have actually stimulated your ethereal field. You could be meditating today and be like, we are surrounded by a subtle field of energy. It's kind of like silence, but it's not, because silence is violence. And I am perfectly well disposed toward this energy because it's where I come from. That's where I'm coming from now. And we can all make a practice of coming from this beautiful energy where no violence has ever needed to exist, and that doesn't want to be part of violence. And in as much as it's been forced to be a part of violence, or any of our flesh and blood, or the ethers themselves, by ignorance or misuse or deceit of any kind, and granted, though you might be a very powerful person, I might be a powerful person, you would never believe how much easier it is to bring 1 million people into deceit than it is to bring 2 or 3. It's just, unfortunately, if you don't understand that, you are the victim of it. Okay, so please understand that group psychology, you got to change the rules that you've developed for yourself and your own conduct. Because groups don't behave the way you do, the way I do. And through groups, though, we get to see a magnification of what is inside of us that we think at worst is just the inert, dark matter of our former existence. It's not. In that unused DNA, on those unused parts of your brain, you know what is there? It's almost like an empty, unused CPU that can be used by the electronic nature of group psychology to get you to do things. And don't worry, because you're never going to feel like you did anything wrong. So it's a win-win situation for you. You get to be part of groups, but you don't have to sustain any more agency, which means that when people enter groups, part of their brain is blacked out. You're blacked out in a group. Groups are always full of blind people. They're always blacked out about the morality, if any, of the entire group. If we could get groups, as much as people go out there in troops of work and war and say, this group, at least here, is responsible for whether or not what it's doing is appropriate, then we wouldn't have any suffering left on earth. And we could heal all these people in these groups who are doing nothing worse than confessing to some sort of critical malady that has entered into their mind, a mind which they themselves are not getting as much use out of as the people who, and even the benefits that the people in the group would say they have are not really accurate if you put the mind back together and see what you're getting versus what it's costing you. And so in economic pathology, humans have to be divided in their mind from what they're giving, what they're getting, and what it really costs. That's called cybernetic psychology. That's cybernetics. To get people to buy where they're really losing and to think they're winning. By getting them to give away what is groomed to be a fairly unused part of your mind. If part of you is never acknowledged by the witchcraft of the world, then it's easier for you to give away unacknowledged parts of yourself. If you're treated as no more than a stool, then you'll give away everything that's not stool-like. Michelangelo just has to get you to give away everything that's not a statue of the. You just give away every part of your mind that isn't what it's been often reduced and elevated, right? Ignored and changed, trained and changed, and molested and sacrificed and changed. into this new greater thing from any sustained imagination of what else you might have been, what the you that you'd learned to be. Through whom, and millions of whom, we can draw any group into question and examine it and find it wanting. Because all human suffering comes from groups. So you want to end human war and suffering, we got to look at group psychology. We got to get nations and groups and banks and families everywhere and to be responsible for what's really happening. Right? It may be one day that we don't teach children combative sports. Whoa, what would that be like? You know? Or if they engage in sports and running around with spears or something, it's outside. So if you're strong enough to do combat and you think it's good, you should do it in a loincloth outside in all kinds of weather. If it's really worth going to battle, do it half naked. Let's make it as hard as possible for you to do war with each other. So when I was young, I would get my stick bazooka or bazookas, and most of the time I just end up going up by myself in the park. I never blew anybody up. I never pointed my gun at anyone. I just liked the idea. The whole war-like thing seemed to be a kind of childlike masquerade that my imagination was already serving to supply a pretext for me to go away and find a safe place by myself and make maps about where these different little bases, as I called them, were, that were usually elevated or removed from the walking path in the park. And you could sit there and find good places to sit. And I had a good feeling returning to them. These were special places to me. I had no context for what was relevant about it. And across the road from one of them, there was a young boy about my age who was playing increasingly difficult amateur baseball. And I thought, wow, look what he's doing. I'm sitting with my stick guns and, in the dirt and just looking out over the lake and the ducks. And he's distinguishing himself as a semi-pro baseball player by the looks of it. And the way he would walk to the base and everything was so confident with his gloves in his back pocket. He'd really just become this person. I don't think he had a father. His mother would be there a lot. And wow, the absolute focus and confidence of this young man, like, it was just startling to me. It was intimidating. I never talked to him. I never really found out about his personality or anything. So I was jealous in a way. It looked like he was going to have a good life, So I can understand if you're good at sports, that's usually a fairly good start in many respects. But I would rather have been running around half naked with him, yelling "Cowabunga." The encroaching gravity of needing a job, from which inevitable and preeminent change in personal and individual conditions, and increasingly collective human conditions and dynamics, can be found in almost every measure preceding and following that moment. It's like coitus. Where does sex happen? When the penis goes in the vagina. When is society complete? When you feel confident that the gravity of needing to engage in indentured servitude can be alleviated by a certain amount of enthusiasm or other activities that have commanded you to feel enthusiastic about organized human activities that other people think are swell. And make you feel confident in what you're doing. Whether it's throwing a baseball, it's like I was watching one of my primate brothers get to interact with these people, many of whom were older than him, and I didn't have anyone to hang out with. Well, maybe I'm actually a reason why you should be in sports. I'd been on a t-ball team. I was a little above average in any of the sports I was in. There's usually like 2 or 3 really good guys and then me, but kind of intermediate. One of the reasons when I played with my brothers or played at recess in school, I was much more athletic. I didn't like putting on a uniform and people watching, and that wasn't really fun. It was like performing. I never enjoyed it as much. I remember playing soccer at school, and the worst is when one of the girls in class started stalking me, and she got a couple girls to yell my name, yay, or playing soccer, right? And I sort of swelled with pride, as you might. Wow, okay, somebody noticed that I'm good at soccer, and it's a girl, and they're yelling my name. Error. Oh my God, it's a girl who's paying attention to me and yelling my name. You know, both things were coursing through my blood. And she was a stalker. She was stalking me. So that was the worst. That was the end of soccer for me. You know, that's where female sex intruded into my happy world. It didn't wait for me to say, hey, I want to talk to you. It was jamming itself into my phone at home. It was shoving its vagina into my face. It was wrapping its arms around my neck. It was saying rude things to me. It was making awful statements to me. It was bullying me and stalking me and all these things. So I wasn't feeling good about the way women were disposed to me, you know. But I didn't know that. I just took it all. This is the world of the gravity of working. I'm sure all those women are working now, and they don't think about anything of their activities as inappropriate. My voice, my feelings don't matter, and I don't want them to. God forbid they should start to matter to these people. God knows what would happen then. You know, I looked at girls, I looked at their butts probably millions of times, but I didn't stalk them. What we're really saying is that none of these girls had moral agency. They're not responsible for how they make me feel, and they're not responsible for erring on the side against, you know, a reasonable provision for the possibility that someone might not want to be touched sexually without their consent. The fact that you're cute and happy and horny isn't really enough. These women were fantasizing, you see, and they were using me as an object for their fantasies. But how come I grew up and thought that only boys objectify women? This isn't about hurting men or hurting women or being a bitter, cynical person. It's just I really want to have that discussion. It's just it may say things about me, it'll say things about no one should be put on the spot. I shouldn't feel like I'm some freak. It's like I just want to open up my brain. I want to shed light into the dark places. I don't have sex, I don't bother women. I'm just trying to be a good man. It's not about sex for me, clearly, otherwise I would have had sex by now. I'm 50 years old. But it is a part of my life that I'm really not sure about. And if I don't like how someone's treating me, at the very least I can find out a bit more about myself. You know, I feel more this way as I get older than I did then. But I know it was affecting me because I was extremely shy. I was always uncomfortable. I just didn't know why. If I'm around strangers in a female dominant environment who want to fuck me, I think that's enough to make a boy uncomfortable. If the one time he has a sex education week or two in the library, the teacher doesn't want to teach us anything, and he's getting paid for nothing. So there's no education. And this is like an alpha male. So the moment a teacher, not just him, is asked to do something extra for me, and anytime a teacher is asked to do something really useful to me, they sit on their hands. It's like that in cults, any human group. As soon as you ask someone to do something real for you, and not to expect it, not to be rude, but really like it would be handy if you did teach me at least this one thing. Because you, or this world, has put me in this environment, which is very alien to me, and I'm a smart, over 200 IQ man who one day will have a lot of reasons to suspect that this is highly inappropriate sexually to me as a human animal and to all society. Not that anyone's really allowed to really forward that argument and no one's allowed to like feel like they need to listen to it, but it's still fucking true. Okay. Because I'm smarter than you. That's why. Because I'm fucking smarter than you. Smart people like me are extremely moral and extremely sensitive and extremely grounded and extremely strong and wonderful and vulnerable and yes, often quite hurt and shocked by the world. All of the above. Which is kind of cool in a way because it sounds like almost anybody could be that way. Exactly. Check mark. It's called being a human, but we don't get to talk about it. The movies, the books. It's like, hey, I'm really strong, but really vulnerable. I'm confident, but I always feel a little bit ashamed of myself. Why is that? It's called society. Don't worry, stick with me. I'm like glue. You're like Velcro. Let's stick together. Really, I'm just going to ruin you. That's funny. It sounds so stoned. It's because I am. Anyway, we're not hurting anyone. My videos, like, I want to be able to upload videos, but I want to make sure there's nothing violent about them. I have a very strong opinions on things. So it's like, and I'm walking. I don't want anyone to ever watch my video and go, "Oh, dude, like, what the fuck? You just sound like a violent." It's like, oh, I'm not, but I just don't want to hear that. You know what I mean? I'm allowed to swear, apparently. Whenever YouTube says, "Is this for children?" I always say no. I like that option. I was like, no, 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 no. I'm thinking, I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing children on Google, right? And Google knows your age, or probably can find out, or Facebook. And so they know who children are and who children ain't. Is you ain't my baby. You know what I'm saying? Imagine like losing your baby and it's like, is you ain't my baby. I lost my baby. I think that looks like my baby. Give me my baby back. All babies look the same. I put camo fatigues and a bandana that says live free or die. What a scary thought, me having a baby. Oh, this world having a baby. I see, ugh, every day, unfortunately, there are women walking around who probably have had babies. Do you ever run across really cool people, maybe stoners like me, but you also sense that they could totally waste all of your time in life? I meet those people all the time. I don't want to be that person, you know. Hey man, let me tell you my crazy theories. Like, we can theories about stuff. That doesn't mean they're worth listening to, but there's a time and place for everything. But I figure by myself out here with a camera is an okay place to talk, so that's why I do. I also change my accent now and then because it makes me feel good. I think anyone who spends enough time using their voice eventually will probably make up voices or something. Hey, this is Poopity Poo. My name's Poopy Poo. Guess what I'm based on? Shit Speaks. I want to write a new age book called Shit Speaks. This is dedicated to all the crap in the world that I never wanted to take. It's so good I'm not on Facebook or Twitter because I can't exist in those realms. I've got too many strong opinions. It's weird how people let themselves get captured onto these social media platforms. What do you think is a platform? Like, you picture yourself walking up in town, it's like there's this raised platform. It's like, hello everyone, this is my picture. I went to Ukita High School and I currently work at the local Wendy's. Right now I'm spanking myself while looking at a picture of J-Lo. Hey everyone, will you be my friend? A social media platform. And what is that good at that kind of it's also bad at? Which is what? showing people's ability to make media of themselves or for themselves, that gives us a very strong indication of whether or not they've succeeded in getting other people to want to watch it and share it with others. Like, hey, look, he did a video of eating poop. Let's share that. That one, people who eat poop. That's what we need to see today. So these are people, a lot of them are government agents, but people who do something that grabs your attention. And that's pretty cool. But it's like I said, it's a good thing, but it's a bad thing. Because, that's not really the real world, is it? Doing things just to grab your attention and give you some advertising and, give you your pop. But that's not how the world unfolds. If you were having the best conversation in the world with your father down by the sea, it's not like, hey, Dad, hey, I have something really good to say to you about what happened last night in Hollywood, and somebody, and guess what? I've got a joke for you and something to sell, also in the span of time that it takes for you to hear what I'm saying and think it's cool, because if it is, give me a like and subscribe, because I got more stuff like this, and I need to know what you want from me, because I'm here for you, baby. Hey, Dad, hey, what do you think about that? You don't talk to your dad that way. Why would you talk to people that way? So it makes sense. It is popular. That makes sense. But in a sense, you can ask yourself, why would anyone do this? It's not real. It's a lie. A brand is a lie. A brand is a lie. Isn't it? Or it's something you can be that people believe that you are, that does something for you that you can say and feel as though you're saying something true about what, and then all of that would be good, wouldn't it? Can you think of anything that could be wrong? Well, I could come along and say, this person's not really informing you of anything, and they're not respecting your ability to think critically. Uh-oh. And that's a red flag on the play, right? It is, right? That's a red flag on the play. And you're like, oh. So I kind of think of myself sometimes as a cock block for the enjoyments of human media. Because that's kind of what I am. I'm a cock blocker for the enjoyments of and the sports of modern technological and entertainment industries. Because I watch Batu Sai auditing videos. I think they're really the only channel I want to watch. I really think this is cool, dude. He's a real dude. And there are not a lot of real people out there. And I like what he does, but I also